What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Source and Company. I'm your host, Source, of course. As always, you can follow me on Instagram and or Twitter at Smitty Source on both of those. Please follow the Source and Company Spotify and YouTube channels. If you prefer Apple or Google Podcasts, you can go to those, but try to stick to the YouTube and Spotify. And follow the Source NCO podcast _ RVA Instagram for everything dealing with Source and Company. All right, great. Let's get into it. We got a lot to talk about. So today's company is my guy. So we actually met back in the day through for the kids at home through I guess it was a internet website chat room. I guess that's what we'll call it. Flavor Town, local hip hop chat room started by Adolphus Maples, a guest of Source and Company a few weeks back, aka Danger Mouth. This man here is an MC. I don't know if you still consider yourself an MC or we're always MCs. I'm not an MC anymore, but you might still be. Anyway, MC turned DJ. He goes by LaDel the DJ. At this point, we got to figure out what's going on with that. And we're going to get into some good topics, hip hop, hoops, and all that good stuff. My guy, LaDel McNair. What's good?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Appreciate you having me, man. I definitely
absolutely. You know, you're one of my favorite people to talk to and interact with. So had to hit you up, bro.
My man.
So I'm gonna hit you with the question that I ask everybody because we started in the end of March, early April. How has COVID been for you?
Well, it's interesting because I am definitely way extroverted. So you might think being isolated and confined to the house a lot more is tough, but it's weird because I don't really bore easily. I always have things to do, things that occupy my time, things I need to be doing, things I want to do. So in that sense, I love the time that I've gotten back and kind of, you know, by way of force, I guess, you know, I've been able to, you know, be restricted to the house and work on some things that I otherwise might delay or hold off on because I'm ripping and running a lot. And, you know, it's also exposed like some creative things and new endeavors in terms of, you know, how we communicate, new outlets for, your creativity. Things like that. So I appreciate it in that way. I do get energy from being around my people. So that was a thing where it's like a few months in, you're like, okay, man, I'm ready to go outside and play. You know what I mean? But, you know, you just kind of deal with it, understand that it's circumstantial. You know, you can only do but so much, do everything that's in your power to stay safe and everything. I've been fortunate and blessed that my family's all right. Everyone's been healthy, safe, working for those who work still, and things like that. So that's, you know, that's the most important thing. That's paramount, the health and all that. I've been fine. And I've actually gotten into a few things as far as like little social things where I can just step out maybe safely with my mask on with one person here or there just to keep my sanity as an extrovert. So I'm cool, man. I'm cool.
Bruh, so if somebody asked me, were you an introvert or an extrovert, I wouldn't necessarily jump to the conclusion that you were an extroverted person. Although I know you like to be amongst the people, I feel like if somebody asked, I'd be like, yeah, he's you know, he's to himself. He got friends, he does his thing, but he's to himself and he likes that. I guess I'm wrong.
That I'm not even gonna lie to you. That would be a huge misread. I would probably consider myself 85-15 extrovert. Like
really?
And the main thing is, so I read about this a long time ago, which is why I've always been really tapped into this and how it made sense. I read this book and it was actually about introverts and it was about understanding introverts better. It was called Introvert Advantage. I had an introvert in my life who I was trying to understand better. So I was reading this book because I saw them reading it and I was like, the way they were responding to it, I was like, I need to get that book and figure out why that book has them going crazy like this. And when I read the book, it actually taught me a lot about myself, and there were a lot of aha moments for me. So the main thing with introversion versus extroversion is like how you recharge. So introverts have to step away, have their alone time and solitude to restore their energy and recharge their batteries. I'm the total opposite. If I get excessive solitude and isolation, I get tired. I get drained, and it's very real. That sounds crazy, but it's super real. When I go out amongst my people and move around and stuff like that, that's how I get energy. That's what lifts me up and keeps me up. So that's the primary difference, and I'm way extroverted in that way. So
Wow.
yeah.
Do you remember the name of the book?
Introvert Advantage. I don't remember the author, but the book was called Introvert Advantage. And it was, because sort of seems like over the last 5 to 7 years, it became like cool and added some mystique for you to say you were an introvert. But way back when, it seemed like nobody was an introvert, and introverts felt, like it was hard to navigate life out here because everyone was rah, rah, and loud and forceful and in your face and small talk and all that. So when I saw my friend reading the book, I was just intrigued by how they kept going, oh my gosh, this is so true. This is so me, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah. So I got the book, I read it, and it teaches you a lot about both. So that's the difference, just how you recharge your batteries and build up your energies.
Gotcha. I might have to check that out. I'm not much of a reader. I should be, but I'm not. But
You're too busy to read. You're too busy, man.
You're right. Different direction,
When are you gonna read?
I need an audio book or something.
Right.
Let's talk about LaDel for a moment. First of all, I want to call you a philanthropist. I don't know if that is only used on people who have hundreds of thousands of dollars, kind of move like that. But I feel like you're a philanthropist because it always seems like you're doing something for other people or for the community, something uplifting, something fun, something like that. Would you consider, is philanthropist the right word, or is it something else that you would describe yourself as?
I actually would not consider myself a philanthropist. I love the work of a philanthropist, but I actually just am kind of a regular cat who just has a spirit for helping people and showing people a good time in some instances, or showing people on an individual basis how special they are, things like that. That's a natural part of me that I don't have to force or contrive. It's always been that way. So I just feel it's like me being myself. And when you talk about like some of the projects, so to speak, that I've done, it's sort of a mashup of that spirit to help and bring people joy or happiness in some small way, and my creativity. That's where those worlds meet. So I think of things to do that can incorporate me being creative and me helping people. The helping people makes me feel good. It's a real part of who I am. My creativity is when I'm not being creative, I feel like I'm on idle. I feel like I'm dying almost when I'm not being creative. So those are important parts of me, and I'm the best way for them to meet and merge is when I do things like that.
Well, one of the main things that people may have seen over the past few years, well, a few years ago, but over the past 5, 7, I guess, years, is your basketball games that you organize, charity basketball games between former players from 2 rival schools. One that you went to, which one did you go to? It's Liberty and Fauquier.
Right.
And which one did you go to?
So I went to Fauquier. That's where I finished high school. When I moved away from Richmond, from Huguenot, I moved to Northern Virginia, 540, and I was at Fauquier.
Before we get to the basketball, I mean to the charity part, how was that? How was that move? Like, it's not like you moved from Richmond to Compton or Richmond to Botswana, but what was the difference between going to school in the 804 as opposed to the 540?
So it was a huge difference. It was drastically different. Richmond was home for me. I had friends who I'd been rocking with since elementary school, people I was close with from middle school, high school, of course. I had played ball in the area, Richmond. I grew up in Southside Richmond. So it was, my experience was predominantly Black. High school schools were 98% Black, and it was just the culture. And that's what I knew. It was what I was around. There's, just cultural things that you experience in an environment like that. I moved to Northern Virginia. It's more like rural, suburban. It's a small town, technically considered a DC suburb, but it's a little ways out. It's a small town. And I remember when I first got there, just walking through the halls, and I'm like, man, this is crazy different. Like, and I remember I had to write, one of my first English assignments was I had to like write a comparison about the two. And I remember the first thing I mentioned was like, I was used to seeing like Huaraches and Timbs, and now it's just Birkenstocks. And what I mean? Like, that was like one of the first things I noticed, like just the aesthetic. It just looked different from the start. It was predominantly white. It was a huge change. Luckily, I had always gotten along with people really well. It doesn't matter, whomever, whatever walk of life, age, race, color, whatever. So that made it a smooth transition. And then two, that's actually where my mother's side of the family is from. So I had visited throughout my life, and so I knew a few people. So that's made the transition smooth too. But as far as just what they are, they're so drastically different. It was a huge change. But
how was the hoops? I was going to skip over this hoops part. How was the hoops different? But was it well? I can't even make a comparison. How was the basketball different at that time?
Okay, so I'm a lifelong ball player. Basketball is one of my first loves, and I had played, all my life coming up through Richmond, and you kind of get, there's a lot of street ball in a way that just didn't exist up there. So you kind of craft and hone your skills on the street ball courts as well as your school and organized ball. So it's like, you have that edge. It's a little more scrappy, a little fancier. Oddly enough, I was kind of a kind of all around kind of player who was good at everything, not great at any one thing, especially when I was younger. So I actually didn't have a lot of flash to my game. I had a very sound game. So when I went up there, it was even less common to see the flashy handle and things might stand out more. Right. But there were a ton of good players. Now, in terms of the divisions, it was a step down. So now there's like 6 divisions, 8, it's a 10, 12, feels like 20 sometimes. They give out state titles to everybody. But back then it was just 3 divisions. So where Richmond was AAA, we were AA. Oddly enough, because that's based on the school size, we were the last year it was AA. So it was right on the line. Right after I left, they moved up to AAA, which is getting into the minutia. But it was good competitive ball. And I came at a time, the late 90s was actually when the county was really up in basketball. So it was really competitive, really good. I was part of a really good team and was able to make a nice mark there. And there was a time where we put together like an AAU team, and we came back, and I would play guys from Richmond, and I would have some of my best games because I knew these guys and the playing style and things like that. But generally, Richmond had a better level of competition. But the couple of years I was there, we were up in a way where we could be competitive with whomever. I think when I first moved up there, we went to the Final Four. And because I transferred back and forth, I had to sit out some for transfer rules. But my senior team was 1 game away from states. And we came back when we got eliminated to watch my friends who played for WIT and things in their playoff run. And we could have played with them. They were probably better top to bottom, but it was good competitive ball. The county is not the same anymore, but the late 90s, it was decent. So, it was a good time.
So your love of basketball led you to create this charity event. 2 schools, like I said, the rival schools playing each other. But even before that, you were doing charity events. I think you were doing you did like a shoe drive.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about was the shoe drive with the cans, or was that the basketball first?
Yeah, they were separate. The shoe drive was separate. It was something I got tapped into by meeting someone. It was just on a whim that I met somebody and like struck a conversation, and I decided I was going to just take on this shoe drive and do it kind of independently myself. And the success of it sort of got my wheels turning, and I was like, I can do stuff like this. It's just a matter of starting it, doing it. And a lot of times, if you make it easy for people, people will help. People want to help. If you just have to make it easy for them, because if it's complicated or hard, that's when they tend to bow out. But I was like, I can do these things. I just have to try it. So that was like what kind of planted the seed that I was capable of even doing these things. The shoe drive from way back when.
Talk about the shoe drive a little bit in detail. You don't have to get all the way in, but I thought it was I'm trying to remember the idea because it was
so it was under the umbrella of a company that I believe was called Soul to Souls or something like that. And basically you kind of tap into them and they can help you with boxes and resources like that as you collect your shoes. And they go to the needy, and it was like a third world country or something, an underdeveloped nation. And they ask for lightly used to new shoes. I'm a shoe guy, so I have shoes that are in great shape, and they can be 10 years old and they look new still. So I was like, I actually can let go of some of these sneakers and shoes I have. They're still in good enough condition for the use that they're looking for. And I reached out to my friends, and I was shocked by how willing people were to get involved. So basically, I just had to collect shoes. I was driving all over the city collecting shoes and picking up shoes, and people were hitting me up like, I got shoes for you, blah, blah, blah. And I had to box these shoes up, pack them up, and ship them off. And it was like, man, that wasn't as hard as I thought. And that was something really simple that fit in with what I'm kind of into already. And it was, it was sort of ready-made for me. So, yeah.
That kind of led into the basketball thing, which, like you said, make it easy for people. People, whether people want to say it or not, I feel like people like seeing people that they used to go to school with years later. Even if it's for a short time, maybe they don't want to hang out with them forever, but I feel like people want to see how people are doing, not necessarily to compare, but to reminisce, I guess.
Exactly.
Brought together that basketball and charity at the same time. Exactly. And created an event that ran for a good 5 years, right?
5 years, yeah. So it's called LaDel's Back, and it was kind of wordplay in terms of me coming back to the county. I chose to do it there because I graduated there, and my basketball connections were a little tighter. Richmond is home to me, my first home, and I love it here. But they actually already existed in some forms, the alumni games. I just think I took it to a heightened level relative to other ones I had seen and other ideas I had heard from other people and things. So essentially, I wanted to fuse like charity, basketball, which is a love of mine, helping people, giving back, which is something I'm heavily into and love to do. And it also sparks that nostalgia. That's the feel good part you're talking about. Like everything, all the sentimental ties to all the throwback stuff, it just forever feels good to you. The music, the ball, this and that. And it strikes up conversation and memories that will forever feel good to you. So I was like, the county in some odd way has a pretty decent basketball legacy and a lot of guys who really were good players. And if I could get these guys back in some all-star type of game and build some charity around it, I think it could really shake. It could really pop. I talked to one of my friends who was doing a similar thing, but it was like intra-school. So it was just like he would do the white and the blue team of just his teammates. And a lot of schools had done that. And I was like, I like the idea. And I chopped it up with him about the pros and cons, the difficulties and things. He was doing something that was raising money. I never wanted to include money and involve money in mine. So mine was always bring a donation to get in, but we turn nobody away, things like that. I just didn't want any monetary situations, with mine, but there were ways you could donate, but I didn't lead with that, and I didn't really go for that as much. That wasn't the aim. But needless to say, he told me, some of the things to look out for, be mindful of, and I hit another one of my friends who graduated with me up there at Fauquier, and she was like, "Just do it. I got you." And when she said that, I was like, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it." So I just jumped out the window. I got the graphics. One thing I've been relatively decent at is promoting and kind of like making sure presentation and things are solid and make things sound big, sometimes bigger than what they even are. You know what I'm saying? It's just like kind of a creative kind of gift of gab / artistic thing where I would really sauce it up and get people charged up and ready for this thing. I did all types of things, such as like pretend I was a commissioner doing a draft at a podium one year, and I had, people make videos about who's going to be on each team and announcements and signings. And I would just get really dramatic and have a lot of fun with it. And people would be so charged up to see it. And we did it for 5 years. Each year was a different cause. We did a coat drive. We did a canned food drive. We did a toy drive. That was incredible. And we did it for 5 years. And then the last one, we did a double header. So we did 2 games. And it was incredible. People would come back from out of state, fly in. The games were really good. Most of them were really close, not a lot of blowouts. I was very precise in the matchup, so it would be a good game to like watch visually. I would have DJs there to play music in the background, do games at halftime, involve the kids. I just made it a huge thing that for an hour or two, people could just have a really good time, feel good, trip off of some old stories, and give back at the same time. And the recipients of all the things that we donated and contributed, get a grand blessing at the same time. So it was just a win-win all the way around. You know what I mean?
That's dope, bro. That's dope. I feel like, you might not say it, but I know people on the other side. I feel like your idea or your doing that ended up sparking what ended up what now an even bigger deal was United versus With. Now it's become even bigger. I think last time they did it, they involved, I don't know if it was TJ.
Yeah, they're like a tournament, like a 4
Yeah, it was like 14. Yeah. So I feel like that kind of being seen kind of led to some of that as well. So kudos to you for all that, for real. Like
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate that.
That's huge. So you mentioned to me, actually, you just said gift of gab in there as you were explaining the basketball. And I mentioned that you are / were an MC. Do you say are?
I don't, but I wouldn't reject it. I don't really say anything. So, but if it's one or the other, yeah, sure.
So, you actually went from the MC thing to DJing as well. Mm-hmm. Is that a natural progression? Because I see this, like when I think, I'm like Kwame, Skills, like it's a number of people that we knew as MCs that are now DJs. Was it kind of that type of progression that led to DJing, or just the love of music in general?
So for me, I would say it's a lot less forced, because for people who are in the industry, like the people you named, and not necessarily the people you named even, but like just people who are in the industry in general, I feel like one of the underrated things is if you're used to working and living in the music industry and that type of freedom and et cetera, a traditional lifestyle is hard to switch to. So if it dries up on the rhyme side or the artist side, you got to figure something out. And that probably can push some of the bigger people that direction, because it's like, I need to do something else because I'm not going to work no traditional job. Right. Me, I've always, I went to school and I've always had a more traditional job. So I didn't have to DJ, but what I will say is there was a time where I thought about DJing and I kind of suppressed it for a couple of years. So I've always been the music guy in all my spaces and circles and whatnot. It's pretty common amongst, Black folk and culturally, just like we just are into music and our hip hop and R&B. as almost everybody, but within that scope of my people, I was always the super duper music guy. You know what I mean? So I was thinking about DJing, and then like people would ask me to DJ stuff, and I didn't have DJ equipment. I wasn't a DJ yet. So I mean, like, I don't DJ. And I would keep getting that question. It was like, man. And I would think about it more, and I wasn't making or recording music, so there was kind of a void. I was thinking about it, but I'm so into like the artistry of it and the craft of things related to music and hip hop. I wasn't gonna just jump in as a money grab or disrespect like the art form, because I'm kind of like that kind of guy, which can be OD to some, but that's just, you know, you come from it, so you probably get that. So I was like, if I do it, I gotta do it. You know what I mean? So I was like, I don't know if I want to, and I sat on it for like 3 years. So I'm 3 years late starting, or when I started I was, because I thought about it for a smooth 3 years, and then one day someone asked me to DJ an event, and I was like, okay, and I DJ'd it with a laptop, like iTunes, like no DJ equipment.
Wow!
And they had a great time, and I was like, that happened, and then I was like, okay, that went well. Whew, got through it. At the end of the year, I said to myself, if you don't officially jump out the window and start DJing, you're never going to do it. And that's when I bought my controller at the top of the year, and I was like, okay, we're doing this. I had a friend from college, Christopher Newport. Chris, he had started a DJ business way back, like when we were in school or either fresh out, and he was doing it from the ground up too, like a small independent, legit entertainment company. Mm-hmm. And he had already brought in some of our schoolmates to help manage, because he had built to the point where he had to delegate. He had different gigs going on at the same time, things like that. And I told him, I'm starting up, but I want to tap in and kind of rock with y'all and get some gigs. That would be an easy way to get gigs quicker than most, you know what I mean? Right. So I think in my first year, I did like events that you just don't get to do your first year DJing. Like when you're a newbie like that, I DJ'd a number of things, and it was like, this is crazy that I'm even out here doing this. But before I started, this is a huge part of the story, because I was so into like, so DJing is weird, right? I always joke, a lot of DJs to me should have been astronauts, because they want to be the only one that people know doing it. And it's like, dude, like relax with the gatekeeper stuff. Like there are a billion DJs, dog. Like, you know what I mean? But you can encounter DJs who are really stuffy and funny style. So I was like, man, do I want to play those games? And if it's going to be a bunch of that, am I really into that? And how is this thing going to go? So before I got my equipment, when I decided, okay, you better do it, I reached out to 4 of my closest, 4 people who I consider friends or acquaintances who were already in the mix DJing. And I sort of wanted to get their opinion and just bounce the idea off of them. Not necessarily get their blessing or sign off, because I'll do what I want ultimately, but it was nice to do that. And it was very beneficial. So I reached out to Benny Foxmore, who used to be Sinister Shan. He's crazy. He was in Richmond at a point, New York at a point. I think he's in Miami now. And he was like, oh, you and your experience in music, and you know how to mix and stuff like that? Oh, you should definitely do it. And I was like, okay. I talked to my man Merc, DJ Mercury, of course, and just picked his brain. My man Mike, who I still DJ with here and there. He was I hosted him on my channel recently on Twitch. And I actually reached out to Skills, and we had an incredible conversation, a really long, in-depth conversation. He told me a lot of stuff, a lot of sort of inside stuff about DJing, and just like, and he too was like, oh yeah, with your background and this and that, you should definitely do it. And it was like, whoa, because he could have easily been like, you know, man, it's kind of oversaturated, blah, blah, blah. You know, a lot of DJs come like that. Like, right. They don't want, you know, then it's not really the more the merrier thing with everyone. But he was certainly like that. And all 4 of them were just like, yo, do it. And so when I heard that, I was like, okay, let's do it. And that was a beautiful thing on their part. So I appreciate all of them for that. You know, and Skills was someone who I considered an acquaintance, but we weren't friends like that, like, you know, hang out or anything, but it's always love when we see each other and all that. And for him to be like, he was just like, yo, call me. And we had a long conversation. It was like, and it was crazy. So I really appreciate all of them, but specifically him. He had done some big stuff by that time. He was of the four that I spoke to, he was probably the most accomplished. Benny Foxmore, the most experienced. And they all were just like, you'd be great, go for it.
Yeah, man, I told you, I sent you a message actually not too long ago because, you know, social media, everybody's on social media, but I've only recently, like within the last year, some change maybe, really gotten into stories, IG stories, and then Facebook came up with the stories as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I got between you, this young lady, Natisha, and Lil Rock, and myself, because I think I'm great at this. Us four are the four people who I follow who I think actually think about the music in a detailed way when they put a story up. The story can be about a dog, and you might pick a song that mentions a line that says dog in it or related to whatever the dog is doing. So I feel like we four actually dig into this thing. I don't want to be a DJ at all.
Right.
Much work. It's not for me.
Yeah.
I feel like the story thing is as close to being a DJ as I would get.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're humble, but you're a music, you're one of the music encyclopedia types. So you can pull from your brain and pull those obscure songs and all that too. So I'm not surprised by that, but I don't think you talk about it a lot. So other people don't know how much of a music guy you might be. I guess they have some semblance based on the channel, but you're one of those guys who you can pull the stuff out of the memory bank and you know everybody and all the artists from back then to, you know, some of the current stuff or whatever's popping and all that. So I'm not shocked by that on your behalf. I know Little Rock, I know he's a music head. I don't know Shorty, but yeah,
Bruh,
man.
I'm going to send you her IG tag because she, for real, like I've never met her, but she's a friend of Rob's. So I've seen her comment. She was on Spike Punch before, and man, every time she posts a story, even in her IG, it's always something that's like, yo, I've never seen this before, and that is hilarious. Or the music is so perfect. It's just perfect with whatever the story is. So I love it. I love it.
Sometimes I like to fuse, like sometimes I'll do something that relates to what I'm posting, but sometimes I like to just like slide a rare gem in there that people might not know and just appreciate, or be like, yo, that little 15 seconds was crazy. What is that? Stuff like that. Like exactly. I definitely use it in a very deliberate way. I will say that. Yeah. But
yeah, that's crucial. Yeah. That's crucial. I love that. I love that. I told you it was going to be a hard. Oh, and I have to ask two other questions real quick. One, is the jumper really like that? Every video I've seen, the jumper looks like it's like that. And you say it is. Is it really?
No gas, man. I'm telling you, I became a better shooter as I got older because you lose a half a step, man. Not as quick. When I was younger, I go by you. It wasn't a problem. But now, and over the last X number of years, you had to develop that jumper, expand that jumper. So in my adulthood, I became like a 3-point shooter. And it's been, I mean, I probably stab a set in my like mid to late 20s for real. But when I was younger, I wasn't known for that. I was more just a little like an everything guy. But those videos aren't edited. It's real. I've played in a lot of games and people will definitely, you know, there's been a lot of times I've been in places where people don't know me and they call me shooter. I will definitely tell you that. I'm not going to go on record and say I'm the best hip hop or DJ guy around in terms of 3-point shooting. But if somebody else said it, I wouldn't reject it.
I respect that.
So I'm taking all challenges. When the world opens back up, I'm letting y'all know right now. You want to have a 3-point contest? Line it up. But we gotta shoot inside. We're not doing no outside concrete wind and all that. And we shooting high school threes. High school threes, because that's what my muscle memory is. High school threes. Eyes closed. Let's go.
Got it. And I have to ask you, what's up with the mustache? Boy, I see you got the pink.
Yeah, that's just, I ain't gonna lie, that's just quarantine chaos, man. I'm just
Right.
in the house and like, we're gonna let that thing rock and we're gonna mess with it and we're gonna go Yosemite Dale with it and just, whatever. But it's a lot to maintain. And when it's not, when I don't twist it up, it looks kind of wild. I don't know how long she gonna make it, but but it was just something fun to do, man.
Man, yeah, I noticed that a while back. I was like, yo, the mustache, he swayed. Looking like a young Riley Fingers.
Right.
Hard left. I told you, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to, switch to this topic, but we're going to get into it because you brought it up to me.
Yeah.
Because I really don't know the story or when it was or how. So you mentioned battling depression at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you want to tell me.
Yeah. Go. So, first of all, it was, to be clear, it was a thing of, it's certainly a thing of the past, something that I dealt with years ago. It's behind me. I'm great now. Life has been good. And, it's just one of those things where for a few years, off and on, I definitely was battling or dealing with depression on a certain level. And I think it's important to talk about because I see a lot of misinformation and just like talk around it that's a little off base. So to get into it, first of all, I want to be clear, like some things that I think are misreads in regard to depression. It's not, depression is not just being extremely sad. You know what I mean? It's not that. Sadness is momentary or temporary reaction to something. Depression is different. Depression is when, I believe that and I'm no doctor, I'm just speaking from my experience, my perspective,
Right.
People have their own, but again, having gotten through it and it being behind me, being in a great space for years, again, this is years ago, I believe it to be, we're just supposed to hover up here. And occasionally you'll have things happen that bring you down here, dip you down here temporarily, where you're down or low, but you generally bounce back and you hover up here. You're supposed to feel good. You're supposed to be happy. We're designed to be. When you're depressed, you hover down here. And occasionally you can have something happen that makes you feel good, makes you happy, makes you laugh, and you get up to where you should normally be. And then you go right back down. And you have no control over it. That's how I simplify, the explanation in terms of what it is. Everyone doesn't experience depression, though a lot more do than those who admit it or recognize it.
That's what I was going to ask you, because based on that explanation, I feel like more people probably deal with some form of depression at some time than would recognize it. And if you don't, I guess if it's not diagnosed, then you may not recognize it.
Right. And you have to really be in tune with who you are and how you are for it to even register, because a lot of people, you can get consumed by things, you can be busy and not realize how low, you're vibrating or what have you. And for me, so it's weird because another thing about depression is it can coexist and penetrate all types of conditions and circumstances. Even when I was low like that, I never wanted to be anyone else. If I was out somewhere, I felt like I was the freshest, flyest, best catch in the place still, even while I was depressed. And you're kind of like, well, how depressed were you if you felt like that? But that's the thing. People who are rich have to battle with depression.
Sure.
People who are poor do. People who are famous, people who have no friends. It doesn't care about your circumstances, your outlook. It can penetrate all that. Your confidence. I've always actually been a confident person. It doesn't care about that. So I never wanted to be anybody else. I never wanted anyone else's life. But for some reason, I had to push through this um, to get to the other side of wherever I'm supposed to be. I don't think depression is not a prerequisite for everyone to be their best selves and maximize their life, their potential, their it's not a prerequisite. And people who I think it's a dangerous thing to use depression interchangeably with being really sad. I get that it's just words and semantics at times, but you got to be careful with that, because everybody who's sad is not depressed, and depression is really heavy and it's way different. So, I was very tapped in and in tune with who I was, how I felt and things, and I just knew things weren't right. So I had to dig in and do the real challenging, gritty work to get through. And it was different. It was hard. There are a lot of successful, incredible people, some famous and whatever, who have openly admitted to dealing with depression, and they still go on to do crazy, impressive things and be some of our favorite people and wildly successful. And again, that's back to the point of it not caring about your circumstances. And for some people, it's just a thing we have to go through for whatever reason. But you shouldn't claim or cling to depression if you're not really depressed. Like, that's not, using that as a cute sympathy thing is way out of pocket, because it's not a thing to play with. It's very heavy. It's very serious. I myself was never suicidal. I would never hurt myself or anyone else, other than self-defense. And that's since I was born. And so I was never, I've never been suicidal. I was never going to hurt myself, never going to hurt anyone else. I never was medicated. I never took any medicine or any such thing. I never self-medicated. I never drank or smoked to get through. I've never smoked or drank in my life, actually. So I just didn't feel those things were necessary for me to get through my specific bout, my situation. And it's different for other people. And I don't judge, I'm just speaking to my experience.
Right.
But I had to dig in and do some real gritty, tough work. And there were days where my only goal for that day was to make it back to my bed at night, not in terms of I wouldn't be alive, but in terms of not having any ambitious, outlandish goals for the day. Like, I wasn't going to conquer the world today. Today, I just need to go to work, get through it, get back home so I can bring it down. Because it's a tough one. Today is a 9, today is a 10. And I just need to get through the day. That was my only goal some days, and that was fine. Other days, I was determined to do a little more, to have a bit of a breakthrough, things like that. I sought therapy. I went to a therapist, counselor, whatever, in different stretches, different seasons. I actually found one who was incredible for me because, the thing about therapists and counselors is they don't solve anything for you. They help you figure out how to solve it yourself and get through it. And the odd thing about the stigma surrounding therapy and things like that is that everyone actually goes to a therapist or counselor. Most people just go to one who's not that good or qualified. They go to their friends. You go to them and do the same thing. Yeah. They don't have the experience, the professional development and education to unlock some of that stuff and unpack it in things quite the same way. And they haven't seen nearly enough cases to have a quantifiable sample size to craft their whole thing from, you know what I mean?
And they are not educated enough to know they can't solve your problem trying to give you the answer, because they don't have the answer.
Right.
Right. Therapist may, like you said, try to lead you to solving your own crisis and help you with that.
Exactly, which is a huge difference. Trying to give someone an answer or trying to show someone how to get the answer are two huge things. You can think about your kids when you do their help them with their homework. Do you give them the answer or do you show them how to get it? It's two different things. If you want to serve them in the long run, you're going to show them how to get the answer. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that's what good therapists and counselors do. So I did that. I tried a number of different things. I changed exercises at times, the way I exercised, or what I was working on, how I was working out at different times. I changed my eating at different times, and this is not with any kind of perfection or like obsession. It was just trial and error. When you care enough, if you really want to get out of it, you'll try almost anything. You know what I mean? Because like I said, you're not going to tap out and give up or give in. So I was willing to try anything because I wanted to be better. People who jive around and play with the word when they're, really referring to or speaking to sadness or just a rough patch, things like that. That's a totally different thing. But when you really hit with a real bout of depression, it's not a place you want to stay. It's heavy. Now that doesn't mean everyone figures out how to get out of it right away or the same way or anything like that. I would never undermine anyone else's experience.
Right.
But yeah, it's just it was just a part of my story, a brief part. But it was a few years off and on, not constant, but just off and on for a few years that I dealt with that. But I got out of it. And then the other thing is like, it rarely looks like being trapped or being in a dark basement, unshaven, dirty, with alcohol everywhere and drugs everywhere. It doesn't usually look like that. Like that's what people think of, but it's usually, people are super high functioning through depression, and you'd never know unless they told you. That's how I was, and that's how most probably cases are. And until they're in isolation or alone, it doesn't really register with others. So you're pushing through. You're still going to work. You're still going to practice. You're still doing this, that, and the third, grocery store, whatever you're doing. But you're not hovering up here where you're supposed to be when you're living this life. You know what I mean? That was afforded to you. So it was just a real part of my story, and I'm glad it's behind me. I truly believe. I know the way I tackled it and dealt with it to do the work. I know I won't have to experience or deal with that again. I know it's behind me because of how I dealt with it. And I had a specific trigger. I want to be clear too. Everyone's triggers and things are different. Now, what my trigger was doesn't really add to the story. It won't really help anyone else. So I won't specify what it was, but what I'll say is it wasn't anything dark or traumatic, like somebody did something to me when I was a kid or nothing egregious. It wasn't anything like that. But I know what my specific trigger was. That's another key part of me being able to get through it when I did through the course of that work. I knew what exactly was the trigger for me.
So is it avoid the trigger or cope with the trigger?
It is, for me, it's cope with it. But no, I wouldn't say that even. For me, it's change how I think about it and redirect my energy to different places. So it was consuming me, my specific trigger, and the way I was thinking about it and things. It was just a complete imbalance. So yeah, people's triggers are different. I was able to be in tune enough with how I felt and who I am to figure out what mine was, and that was a key piece of figuring out how to navigate it. And again, I got through it, got over it, and it's on to back to sunny days and whatnot. I think there's one more unspoken thing though while we're on it that I never hear people talk about, and I think this is important. As a young Black man, it's actually weird because one concern you have especially if you're particularly like cerebral, is like you worry about people weaponizing it against you. And when I say that, I mean, we've seen it countless times in the news. and stories all over the place. How many times has someone been in the wrong place at the wrong time, and suddenly this story swells about how they were depressed, they didn't take their medicine, blah blah blah, and these things are pinned to them, and it's a totally false account of their experience, their situation, and they don't have anything to do with this, right? And especially a person who has certain skepticisms. I'm not paranoid, but I have realistic skepticisms that I've seen, that are based on things I've seen, real experiences, right? If I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time, or something crazy happens, which I'm a squeaky clean kind of square guy. I don't put myself in crazy places and situations. I'm harmless. I stay out of trouble. I'm law abiding. I'm not into any mess. But all I have to do is be in the wrong proximity to something. Something could go down. And if there's like, oh, he deals with depression, he wasn't on his medicine, he went crazy, he did it, that has actually happened a number of times, where people make a totally false account of a person's mental space based on something minor from their past. And even in my situation, like I had a sister who was killed because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So
really,
it's not like a fake, paranoid, like bogus, ridiculous thought that countless times young black men are either, falsely accused or tied into something that they had nothing to do with, or blamed for something. And it's dangerous to think that even though I'm an intelligent person, educated, harmless, I stay out of people's way, I've always gotten along with everybody and all that, I actually had thoughts that if people, if there's any misconception of how, how I'm affected by depression, people could paint a whole story about me and tie me into some mess that isn't at all applicable to me in my life. You know what I mean? And when you've seen up close how being in the wrong place at the wrong time can affect you, that's something you think about too. You know what I mean? We've seen this again. We've seen stories countless times. It's like, something happens and then they pull up pictures of them from the internet wearing a do-rag, and they say they were a gangster, and you know what I mean? They pull out pictures of them playing with their friends and say they were in a gang because they did something with their hands and all that. That happens all the time with young black men, right? So absolutely. That's something I even thought about, which it's not a huge thing. It wasn't at the front of my mind, but it was in the back of my mind too. Like when I was more reluctant to say anything or speak up about it. But you get older and you're on much more solid ground, and you kind of get through it, and you reconcile a lot of it and work through a lot of it, and you have to ultimately decide that it's beneficial and it serves people to speak about it, especially when you are proven to have gotten through it. You know what I mean? And gone on to live, really happy, really great life. I mean, I've had a beautiful life before, even during at times and after that. But it's just a part of the story. So yeah.
And you realize that more people have more issues, whether they know it or not, or want to publicize it or not, than will admit it. So
absolutely, it's
everybody got their stuff. Everybody's got their stuff. Just depends on how serious it is.
Right. And I remind people too, to wrap it up, like that was my thing. But everybody has something, you know what I mean, at different times. Like, you know what I mean? The rich guy might have the crappy marriage. The happily married people might have a sick family member. You know what I mean? Like it's everybody has something. No one is batting 1,000 and just completely void of any issues, problems, whatever circumstances. So that just was happened to be mine, part of my story. But don't be out here screaming depression if you ain't depressed, because you don't want no parts of that. I'm telling you right now, it's not a good time.
I believe that is correct. I believe that.
And I'm a fun guy. I'm a fun guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm have a good time guy to everyone. So, and I do enjoy myself. So for me to experience that, and then you think about, people that they've referenced in the past or spoken up about it. I don't know, Robin Williams, right? Like Jim Carrey, I believe, a bunch of people. I mean, artists and rappers that we like, a bunch of people. So, we're not invincible or totally exempt. So,
indeed. That was a hard left. I guess we're gonna make a hard right. Before I let you go, we gotta get in. You mentioned some hot takes or some lukewarm hip hop takes. I don't have a lukewarm hip hop take, but I do want to get your thought on the Brooklyn Nets Big Three and where that's gonna go.
Basketball dive. Okay. So I'm gonna be honest. The last like 2 weeks or so, I checked out a little bit, but I feel like I saw that they were kind of getting their rhythm at some point. Initially, I had my doubts. I just thought that 2/3 of them are just too ball dominant. I don't know that Kyrie is the easiest teammate to have in the world. So you're already starting with him and KD. KD's been proven to be a tad sensitive, outspoken, burner accounts, things like that. So these guys off the basketball court, they just bring a lot, killer basketball players. But then you add in someone who's so ball dominant, like James Harden. I've had my doubts. I don't know what they have as far as depth, to be honest. I literally would have to look at their roster to see how they go down to, like the 8th man or whatever, because off the top, I can't even pull it. But they're obviously formidable. I feel like I saw that they were starting to cook a little bit, and it was like, okay, this is working a little better than maybe we anticipated, or maybe I anticipated.
Right. They give up a lot of points.
I don't think. Yeah, I did see that they let the Wizards score like 2,000 points. Not guarding anybody. Whatever the case, I don't think they can win at all. I don't think it just doesn't happen that way for a new team to assemble like that to win it all. Their ceiling, they could go to the Eastern Conference Finals if they figure out a way to play a little bit of defense. But if they don't guard, I mean, it could be a second round exit. First year, I mean, you could put an all-star team together. For some reason, just first year, it's just hard to win that title. I don't think it comes together that way. I don't think you can buy a team or manufacture one that way. So, they have potential for a deep playoff run. I don't see them in the finals or winning the finals. I definitely don't see that. But it's cool to watch for us. I mean, we just keep getting these like little all-star teams, and it's a different look for the league relative to what we grew up on. But it's cool to me. I mean, I just like seeing guys get busy. I feel like they show the same 8 teams play every night anyway, so we just add them to the rotation. So
yeah.
Cool, man.
Definitely rotate. A lot of Brooklyn happening. So I'll let you get to the. Do you have a hot take? Did you come up with a lukewarm hip hop take?
I just want to get some rapid fire takes off.
Bang, let's go.
First of all, there's never been anyone on the planet Earth that can rap better than Black Thought. Maybe as good as to your taste, but not better. Stop it. 2, Black Thought is the best MC on the planet Earth. The best hip hop artist, which would just include your full artistry, beat making, everything. The best hip hop artist on the planet is Odyssey from the DMV, who actually did a song with and have an interesting story behind that. But he's the best hip hop artist on the planet. Outkast's best album is Southern Playalistic. The first album. It's not Equipment. It is not ATL. It's Outkast's best album is their first one. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
And then Timbaland is the best hip hop producer, or the best, urban music producer we've had. Contemporary urban producer, music producer, or hip hop producer. And of course, MJ is the best entertainer. Prince is the best musician of all time, and that's it. So that's my rapid fire 5 takes. At me or not. That's what we're doing. That's what we're going with. And I stand on it.
That man said Black Thought is the best rapper on the planet.
Best MC on the planet.
MC on the planet. And you said Odyssey is the best
hip-hop artist.
Hip-hop artist on the planet.
That's a fact.
People have to Google Odyssey because
I know. He's crazy though. He's crazy.
I did have you might have seen that. I had Track Life on from LA, and he and Odyssey did an album together a while back as well. So, and I brought Odyssey down to Richmond back in, I don't know what year it was, 09, 10, something like that.
Nice.
It was a big thing.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Man, is there anything that we missed out on? Anything that we didn't tell the people? Anything you want to share with the Sourcing Company viewer, listener?
I just appreciate you having me on. Although I've transitioned to some different things, I do have a slight itch to. I don't think I put out my, I have projects that I've done and whatnot. I think the beauty of music is like it's hard to make like perfect joints or perfect execution on joints. So that kind of keeps you going. But I do kind of have the itch to put out a last project musically because I think it'll be my one. I think I've had the whole journey from battling to putting out the early music that was trash to putting out solo stuff. I had an album in 2012 that had some good stuff on there and some really cool, really dope features that I was really proud of. Group project. Almanac has probably been the most highly regarded project I've done. I know Lonnie B was a huge fan. A bunch of people around Boxing One when I was doing it was like a raw hip hop group thing. We were cooking for a while. I used to get a lot of feedback. People were talking about us different places like that. But I've never had, I've had a weird relationship with music where I've never been just fully immersed in it, like full time all the time. It's just been one of my creative outlets that I enjoy. And I think I have my one project in me still that I think I want to put out, because if I don't, I'll forever regret it. Some of us, Mr. Mike Source here, we just came out the gate with home run first project. He's got a regional classic that everyone loves. And, I don't think while I have a strong catalog and I can make a best of I'm really proud of, I don't think I put the one body of work out that really is the one to leave behind. So I may have some more music in store, man. So there's that. But other than that, I like the Twitch platform that I'm new to. I'm building up the channel. I'm going to drive people there. So it's twitch.tv / LaDel the DJ. That's LaDel the DJ. I just want to really drive that up. I like the culture there. People just enjoy the music. It's not about I think music culture is weird in ways how we listen to a song at home, listen to it in the car, and then want to hear it where we go to the spot we're going to. It's like, really? Like, I appreciate how Twitch just is so open to all types of music and letting the DJ cook and not forcing their hand in a way where they play the same old stuff all the time. I just really love how open it is. So I'm going to probably do some stuff there. But yeah, man, we're just being creative, enjoying ourselves, and spreading love, baby.
Indeed. Once again, LaDel McNair, bro, I appreciate you coming through. Once again, thanks for the compliment as well. LaDel McNair.
All right.